For more, let's bring in CTV's Kevin Gallagher. Kevin, let's talk a little bit more about this much anticipated address to Parliament from President Biden. He just spoke there about the relationship between our two nations, and he really touched upon that throughout his speech.
Exactly, Lois. And I think a real important thing here was not only that theme of friendship and a shared future, but really three specific themes that I felt the president kept going back to. Of course, Joe Biden talking about Canada's shared economic future, the importance of critical minerals, semiconductors, computer chips, of course, big priority for the United States, but also the union jobs that'll create a lot of the new green infrastructure. Of course, the Inflation Reduction Act in the United States is something that Canadian officials and politicians here are really feeling a lot of pressure to try and match in terms of the incentives for industry. You also have shared defense as a big priority, and as well the shared responsibility of maintaining our democratic institutions, something that, of course, President Joe Biden mentioned a lot about those shared values, that importance of having, that equality, freedom, but also that freedom of expression, and also the institutions that allow for, the rule of law to exist. And in contrast, in many ways, to Russia and China in that speech, of course, what we've seen with the invasion in Ukraine, and as well as the rising tensions that have happened between the United States and in many ways Canada, of course, with Beijing. And a lot of that, again, looping it back into semiconductors, a lot of that tension for the United States does come around, the future of Taiwan, a major producer of computer chips, especially high-end ones, and the future military technologies with China on the rise as an economic and military power.
And Kevin, the president also in his speech touching upon something that we heard buzz about before the president was speaking in Parliament. There was reporting that there was a potential deal on border crossings. This is especially important when we're talking about the third country agreement and Roxham Road.
And the intertwined future, again, of the North American continent, especially the partnership between Canada and the United States. A theme there. The president did talk about the struggles of migration, did talk about Haiti as well, which, of course, the situation there is in many ways increasing the amount of migrants. Many of those migrants that have come irregularly through that Roxham Road crossing are from Haiti, but from many other countries around the world. So it does seem that there's going to be a deal announced here between the U.S. and Canada to change some of the terms of that would allow Canada to, of course, turn away some who are not seeking a particular type of asylum at the border. Basically, right now, the issue is that people can cross irregularly in between official border crossings. Because of this agreement, Canada can actually turn back asylum seekers at official border crossings because we consider the United States a safe third country. There have been issues and loopholes, it seems, exposed in that agreement, and those details are going to be solidified here, it seems, between the United States and Canada to try and, end some of that crossing, but also give officials the ability to send people back and also process people when they're coming across the border as an asylum seeker. So we'll see as well if that more details come out in the press conference there, Lois, and also what type of criticisms we might hear because of the updated Safe Third Country Agreement.
Right, and just finally here, Kevin, important to note, there were, of course, a lot of special guests in attendance during the speech in the House of Commons, but most notably, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. They were two people that the president mentioned, of course, but two names that have also come up recently in headlines because of the allegations of Chinese interference in our elections.
Well, of course, Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor were the two Canadians who were detained, for more than 1,000 days in China. And of course, like you mentioned, their names have come up recently again with Toronto area MP Han Dong stepping aside because of a recent Global News report that cited national security sources. Now, some of this issue, of course, is over Mr. Dong, having a conversation with the Chinese consulate in Toronto, where Global News reported that, there was a a mention for Mr. Dong to the Chinese consulate that it would be better if the release of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spavor were delayed. Mr. Dong has denied this, that this is very untrue, and is also saying that he may take legal action according to the Globe and Mail today. So, all of this, of course, like you say, coming up in the news, but it was really quite something to hear President Joe Biden mention Michael Kovrig and Michael Spavor. Of course, they were detained in many ways because of a retaliatory action that came from Beijing. There was an arrest of a Huawei executive, Meng Wanzhou, at the time back in 2018. So, certainly a major symbolic moment, not only to the partnership between Canada and the United States. Of course, Meng Wanzhou was wanted on a U.S. Arrest warrant, but also that there was U.S. involvement in getting the release of Mr. Kovrig and Mr. Spavor.
Okay, CTV's Kevin Gallagher reporting for us. Thanks so much, Kevin.